Hello, this is a video presentation on this LxNav S-100 instrument that is in the Memphis Soaring gliders, all except for the 126. The purpose of this is to go over the profile that's called the MSS profile, and the fact that if you use this profile while flying a glider with this instrument, that the settings on it are all the same. This piece of equipment is a combination variometer and flight computer. It has an internal battery, allows use of ship's battery if a ship's battery fails or if not connected. It has a Bluetooth capable that allows uploading of flights. A wind readout helps with situational awareness. There's a thermal assistant that aids in centering of thermals. There are so many features that could be set for personal preference that most of them will not be mentioned in this presentation. Each of the club ships with this S-100 will have a profile called the MSS profile with the same options selected to allow familiarity when using this profile, regardless of which glider you're flying. If you desire to upload to WeGlide or log for badge recognition, we will need to create your own profile. Please note, this instrument should be viewed as a potential distraction. Attempting to make changes while in flight can cause loss of situational awareness. For that reason, you should become disciplined in your pre-flight routine, recognizing and avoiding distractions. Do not allow yourself to be rushed and avoid having conversations while getting ready to take off. If set correctly before takeoff, it should need minimal interaction when flying in the local area. Cross-country adjustments should be well understood in advance to avoid distractions. This is out of the owner's manual, which is on the training page. It's a indication of the various controls. You've got what are called rotary push buttons at the top and bottom on the right, and then you have 3 push buttons on the right. And this is what each one of them does. It has different functions. The upper right is primarily a volume knob once you get the unit running. The bottom one is a rotating knob to rotate to a particular selection, and then you push it to select that option in the menu that you're on. And then you've got other buttons that can move you to other screens or select other options as well. The symbols and pointers, the colored items on here in particular, are the McCready setting. We'll talk about how to set this later. There's an article or two on the training page talking about McCready, why it's important to use a McCready setting. Wind vector is the arrow right here is referred to as a wind vector arrow. It tells you the direction the wind is coming from. Here's a numerical representation that in this case 129 degrees at 8 kilometers. Variometer needle works just like a regular variometer needle at times. At times it does not. We'll go over that as well. The green T is your last thermal average. It tells you what you experienced in your last thermal. The red diamond is programmable for like G-forces. We don't use it, so you can ignore that. The yellow bar, this range of yellow, is the range of lift or G-load. In our case, it's lift in the last thermal or the last period of time. The numbers on this screen can be programmed. It has other information here. Battery, strength. When we start up the unit, we press the rotating knob in the upper right, and that begins a startup process, which will land you on this screen, and you'll hear it state select profile to ask you to confirm the profile you want to use. If this profile is showing, you would just press the middle button to move to the next screen. Otherwise, you would rotate the lower knob here to find the profile that you want. Perhaps you've got your own profile. You would press the button or the knob, excuse me, once you find the profile you want. And then if it doesn't move you to the next screen, you press the middle button to go to the next screen, which is the altitude screen. After selecting your profile, you'll press that center button to move to this screen. Use the lower rotating knob to set the altitude to field elevation, then press the center button to move to the next screen. I find that the GPS, if it's locked into the satellites, knows where you are and comes up with an altitude that's spot on most of the time. Otherwise, adjust as necessary with the lower knob. Press the middle button to move to the information screen. This page gives GPS status in the top area. If the external battery is installed, it would be showing up in this area here. You can check the voltage there. It also shows the percent charge state of the internal battery of the unit. If it's not at 100% or close to it, it's going to be recharging from the glider battery that you plugged in into the airplane itself. It's also got a temperature OAT set there as well. So once you get done with the information page and you press the center button, you'll land on this page. And it has nav boxes on it. The box in the lower center area is called nav boxes, plural, as there are 3 programmable sections. You could even have 2, but most of us are using 3 different ones. And there's dozens of possible combination of information to actually put in this area. The first box that we're going to have programmed for the MSS profile is the required altitude. It's telling you the required altitude to get to your waypoint, and you should have MSS at the top. And so it's going to tell you how much altitude you need to get there. So if you're above that, you're good. If you're below that, you're not. And of course, that's all dependent on having an accurate McCready setting. So it's important to have the correct McCready setting there. It also includes a 1,000-foot safety margin. We'll talk about that in a minute. Box 2 is the distance to the waypoint, how many miles you are away from the waypoint that's selected. It's a good way to begin to understand by looking out in front of you how far 5 miles is or 3 miles is. You can start to get a better idea of distances without the need to have this, but you're going to have this on this profile. And box 3 is the elapsed time since you took off. Note that this is in the 5-mile scale, and you can zoom in and out by rotating the lower knob to different 5-mile increments. The thermal mode is automatically brought up when you start circling. Apologies for the lack of clarity on this image right here, but when you start turning, the GPS detects it. And as always, wind information is available. You can see where the wind's coming from. There's your wind vector arrow. Here's your wind direction and speed information at the bottom of the screen. When you're circling to the right, the glider image is on the left side of the circle, and vice versa when you're turning left. When you're thermaling, you're going to hear a ping on occasion. The computer's trying to tell you that you need to expand your circle in an effort to center the thermal or lessen the bank angle. So when you hear that ping, it should be a wake-up call that you need to adjust the bank angle of your circle. So these bubbles in the thermal assistant screen have meanings. The blue one tells you that in this area where there's blue, the lift is at or below your McCready setting. White is the area of this, that's the one area of the strongest lift in your last circle. There will only be one white circle. Yellow, orange, and red in various sizes are indicating varying strengths above McCready. So to set McCready, let me first read that a McCready value should be set before takeoff and can be adjusted in flight. The value set should be based on forecast expectations. Flights before noon would be 0, and afternoon with lift expected in our area 3 to 4 on average. This setting tells the computer the average lift and sink to be expected, and will also allow, the thermal assistant to reflect colors based on the setting. Suggested reading is the article on our training page under the cross-country flying section. To set McCready, you would press the lower knob, which will bring up this menu. And then if the rectangle box that is currently over a restart is not over McCready, you would rotate until it's over that, and then you would press the knob again, and then you would set the McCready setting, and then let go of the knob, and the page will default back to the previous screen. I'd mentioned safety altitude before. The calculation to get to, or the calculation for the altitude required to get to the waypoint includes the safety altitude. What that means is it's telling you that if you need 3,000 feet to get back to MSS, then at 3,000 feet, if you go straight to MSS using speed to fly techniques as you cruise, that you should get there at pattern altitude of about 1,000 feet. And so as you're cruising along, you can see if that altitude is matching your current altitude, and you can predict with some assurance whether you're going to be able to get there or not, as well as you might come in a little bit low, meaning that you should plan for an abbreviated pattern, perhaps a direct entry to base or a straight in final. That's one of those things that you'll learn as you start to use the instrument, and with proper settings and flying techniques of speed to fly, you can learn to trust or know what information the instrument's given you. It considers wind and McCready settings. So here's a screenshot of the variometer. And some of the information on here is telling us that the McCready is set at 3. So these blue dots tells us that the lift on the last circle was below 3. The green T is telling us our average lift of the last circle was a -1, and we're currently at -1. The range of lift of recent is between -3 and a little over 1. Here's your wind vector. We're in variometer mode. This right here tells us the active waypoint that's selected. This 58 degrees with this little chevron looking symbol pointing to the right tells us that if we were to turn right 58 degrees, we would be pointed at our waypoint, in this case MSS. Here's an example of a well-centered thermal, fairly consistent lift all the way around. The McCready is set at 3.8, maybe 3.6. And with this kind of lift, you might think that, you might want to move that McCready setting up closer to 6. It's telling us the average here has been a little over 3, and the most recent average over time has been between 4 and 8 knots of lift. And the wind over here is out of 87 degrees at 5 knots. Here's your wind vector. It's coming at this point, quartering tailwind in the thermal. Okay. So here we are in thermal mode again. The colors can be misleading though. If you don't have a McCready set, it can lead you to believe that life is crazy good, which in this case, it's telling us that our average variometer, netto, meaning between our natural sink rate of the glider and the average thermal strength, is 5.2. We're currently experiencing 11.3. The variometer needle is clearly pegged out. Our average thermal up here is 5.5 maybe, and our range is between 1 and over 10 knots, let's say. But the fact is that McCready is set at 0. Here we are on this side over here with blue dots telling us that the lift in this area of the circle is below 0. So we're right now, we're in this really strong lift. We're coming around, and then we're hitting sink. And then we're back in lift and sink. So this thermal is not centered. And so to center it, as we come back around this way, we would push ourselves by rolling wings level or taking a lot of our bank angle out and letting ourselves drift over here, start our circle again, and then look at the colors and the strength and keep working on it until you get it centered. The next thing to talk about is when you're not in variometer mode, in other words, the GPS senses that you're not circling, it thinks you're cruising. And so when you're on the task screen, you may or not see this particular display is brought up by pressing the lower push button. So when you're cruising, you might prefer this particular screen. But if you don't push it, you'll have the regular screen with the waypoint at the top, and you'll be cruising, and you'll have SC at the bottom. Now, I'm not exactly sure why they call that SC, but it's a reference that's speed to fly. And what that's telling us is that the variometer needle is giving us indications of what speed to fly. It is indicating whether you're in lift or sink, but not purely whether you're in lift or sink. It's trying to tell you to speed up or slow down. So, as you're cruising and you got SC at the bottom and the needle's up, it's telling you should start to slow down. As you slow down, the needle will drift towards 0. And when the needle gets to 0, your goal is to keep it at 0. Therefore, if you enter sink and the needle comes down, you would speed up, because we know, if you know McCready, the theory is to speed up in sink and slow down in lift while you're cruising. And that's what this needle is trying to get you to do. It's telling you, based on your McCready setting and the lift or the sink that you're in, you need to keep this needle at 0. That's the theory and the process to use the information that this needle is giving you when you've got SC at the bottom of the instrument. Here's a picture that I took at the 2025 Ridge Camp. And we got SC at the bottom. The needle is up, telling us that we could slow down to gain altitude. But here's the average thermal strength is 1, a little over 1.4 maybe. And here's our range of lift. But the point is, we're flying in SC or speed to fly mode. We're actually flying on a ridge, so we really don't want to gain too much or lose too much altitude. So our process for determining whether we want to speed up or slow down is how well we're staying on the ridge. I can tell you that we were doing 85 knots at this point. So we're cruising along at 85, which is pretty fast. And the reason we could stay fast is that here's your wind readout right here. There's your wind vector. It's pointing this way. I know, because I know the area, that we were headed to the southwest because the wind was coming from our right. The ridge is over here, so the lift is coming up, and we had 19 knots of air. And so with wind going that fast, you can go faster. And so we were doing 85 knots. It's telling us the speed to fly should be 68. This is that nav box. It can be across the bottom or it can be up the side. And in the K-21 at this point, we had it programmed for speed to fly. So we were doing 85 knots, and it was telling us, hey, you ought to slow back a little bit. We're 18 miles from our waypoint, which was the Marion County Airport, where we took off from. And it's telling us that our arrival altitude, we need another 2,600 feet in order to fly straight there. So you got all this information here. If you know what you're looking at, you can tell what to take away from it. This is another example of a well-centered thermal. There again, the McCready setting should have been set more in the 6 area. You know, this range right here can give you a clue as to where you might want to set your McCready. Once you start thermaling and you see this yellow band, your McCready should be no lower than the bottom of the band and probably on average in the middle. And the reason that's important is when you do start cruising, you're telling the computer what kind of not only lift you might experience in the air, but sink. So when you start to experience sink, it's going to give you a better speed to fly and you'll lose less altitude. Let me make one more comment about the SC mode, the speed to fly mode. When you enter the traffic pattern, my recommendation is you turn down the volume to remove the distraction of the variometer's tone, the audible tone that it gives you. And know that in the traffic pattern, you should be ignoring the what is the speed to fly needle when you're in SC mode. When you're in SC or speed to fly mode, that needle may well be telling you to speed up or slow down. But what do we use in the traffic pattern but our eyes? We're looking at airspeed, altitude, and distance. Once we hit the downwind, we should, you might look down and see that the needle goes down hard, which means, yeah, you're in sync, or it may go up high telling you you're in lift. But that's nothing more than feedback confirming or that you might want to react to that with air brakes out or in. But ultimately, we should be looking out the window. We should be looking at our airspeed, confirming that we're in the zone on our airspeed based on everything, and then our distance from the runway and our altitude. The variometer should not be all that important to us. So when we shut down, we come in and we land, and we roll to a stop, the computer will collect and send the flight's file to the internal drive and the SD card for storage. It does it by date and time. You can toggle to this page by using the center push button. So you would press the push button until you get to the menu mode like this, and then you would use the lower knob to rotate to the logbook page. And then you would press the lower button, and this page comes up, and you can use the lower knob to rotate through the various flights and find the date and the time. So, for example, if you knew you flew last weekend and you couldn't remember how long the flight was, you could, if you knew roughly what time you took off, you could go in and scroll to that flight and find it and look for it. To shut the unit down, you hold the upper rotating knob, and then a pop-up menu will say shutting down in, and there'll be a countdown like 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. I suggest that you wait 2 more seconds after it hits 0 before releasing the knob, and then the forward unit will go blank. If you're in a 2-place glider, the back unit will go off when the power goes off. So when you hit the master switch, the back unit goes off on its own. There's going to be a card with this on it in each glider. It's going to be a kind of a quick start card to allow you to properly bring the unit up. There's a YouTube series by Dave Springfield on our training page. And the videos of his series, he's got a bunch of videos. Video 1 and 5 have a video content relative to some of the things we've talked about here, such as starting it up and setting the McCready is on those videos. So in conclusion, this video is not meant to teach all the available features. It's intended for our members to have a base understanding on how to start the unit, set the McCready value, and to understand what it is telling us while flying in the local area. The MSS profile is the same in each of the gliders that have this unit installed. please do not modify the profile. Should you desire to set your own profile for use beyond the local area or for badge work, please seek a member who can help you better understand its use for such purposes. I'll also tell you that there is this PowerPoint presentation without audio, it's just a pure PowerPoint, is also on our training page if you would like to go click through these slides and refresh yourself. Thank you.